Welcome back. We are still in week 5 of our Parenting Today lecture series. We are on part number 7. This will be our final part in this week's lecture series, beginning the conversation by talking about teen attachments. So as we've discussed throughout the semester, attachment is something that is a very critical and essential part of parenting. So secure attachment during the adolescent years is defined with open, interactive communication with parents, very few arguments, and children are given autonomy and room to problem solve. Insecure attachment or preoccupied insecure attachment is defined as highly symptomatic and needy with others, often unknown to parents, lots of arguments between the parent and the child, which can lead to problematic adult relationships, and the child really has difficulty establishing autonomy and independence. Insecure and a dismissive attachment is when a child has no or little communication with anyone. In terms of handling disagreements, teens do not question parental morals, values, or rules for safety, but they do interpret them differently. They're heavily influenced by peers. Teens want to exert choice and self-determination. Parent-teen disagreements do not usually result in prolonged angry relationships. Statistically speaking, most often the child gives in. We talk about the effective parenting of adolescents. Number 1 is communication with teens, keeping those lines of communication open, allowing teens to seek independence while monitoring and guiding from a distance, a close distance, spending time together, and really establishing and maintaining those positive and warm connections. Research tells us that it's important to remember that sensitivity and responsivity are important at every developmental stage. So being warm, sensitive, and responsive with your children when they are toddlers is every bit as important as maintaining that warm, sensitive, and approachable attitude when the kids are teenagers as well. In terms of dialogues with adolescents or teens identify parents as very important to them in research studies, even if they don't verbally identify these factors. So we know that teens can be obnoxious, but they don't mean to upset parents. It's oftentimes their way to assert autonomy, but not necessarily their independence. So parents need to show unconditional love and support, not necessarily friendship to children. So, establishing that authority role is very important. Establishing yourself as a parent and not your child's friend during their adolescence is something that can be a very critical boundary issue, very important. We talk about communication patterns. Teens are more likely to disclose to mothers. Girls are more likely to disclose to parents as compared to boys. And parents can communicate values in subtle ways and children listen. So it's really important, that old adage, children don't tend to imitate what we say, but rather what we do. So our behavior, how we actually operate in the world, as opposed to what we're preaching or what we're saying, is really more important here when it comes to parenting children, and values as well. So in terms of monitoring behavior, teens whose whereabouts are monitored by their parents, especially mothers, are less likely to engage in high-risk behavior. That's not to say that just monitoring behavior is going to ensure that your teens aren't going to engage in it, but statistically makes it less likely for those children to engage because they are aware that they are being monitored. Parents with a warm, supportive relationship with children don't need to observe or track children because children tell them openly what they're doing. So teens with a good relationship are reluctant to lie. Parents and teens agree that teens should tell parents about matters related to morality, health, and safety. Spending time and money should be voluntary. In terms of monitoring behavior of adolescents, it's associated with a later onset of sexual initiation, a greater likelihood of safe sex once sex is initiated, and a decreased likelihood of using alcohol and other illicit drugs. So overprotectiveness. Remember, it is possible to be too overprotective. Appropriate monitoring of schoolwork is associated with a higher GPA. However, statistically speaking, too little and too much monitoring is associated with lower GPAs or grade point averages. When we talk about discipline in adolescence, the best discipline research demonstrates is natural or logical consequences. So for example, if a child were to get a speeding ticket, actually having to pay off a fine as a result, or pay that speeding ticket, it would be an example of a natural or logical consequence. Limit setting, setting a curfew, is also viewed as a best practice when it comes to discipline. Removing privileges, also considered to be a best practice here. Taking away access to the car, computer, or other type of privilege. Negative discipline, again, we'll revisit, remember that physical control, teaches children sometimes to externalize behavior, can promote antisocial behaviors later on down the line. Exhibiting psychological control as a parent can teach children to internalize behaviors and is often associated with depression. Both can be viewed as intrusive and manipulative. So we have some parenting advice here from Samantha. Children tend to accept parental values and rules. Having values of their own is not a rejection of parental values. Personal choice is a part of establishing self-identity, and really choosing battles when working with teens is key. So choosing what's most important to you as a parent, really picking those battles wisely. Letting adolescents talk about their reasoning helps promote decision-making skills. So really helping, being there as a scaffold, helping parents or helping children tease out or talk about those reasoning really helps parents be able to identify faulty reasoning and help shape or guide better reasoning or behavior. So parental tasks in early adolescence consist of continuing to be the most important influence in the child's life, also modeling self-control and responsible behavior, a really important thing to do. Remembering that children do as we do, not always as we say. Being sensitive and responsive to children's needs, communicating about difficult topics instead of avoiding them or sweeping them under the rug, giving children more decision-making power in an age-appropriate way, providing support and understanding as children undergo these many and varied stages, and spending leisure time together. Also, same as the previous slide when we talk about late adolescence, but then also serving as a consultant for important decisions, such as post-secondary education, college, big choices like that, and allowing children to separate in a supportive environment. So what strategies work best with teens? Involvement in positive and structured activities, spending time with parents, eating meals together, involvement with church or other social organizations, developing a strong social network, strong value system, providing empathy as well as altruism, statistically decreases the risk for delinquency, drug use, and earlier sexual activity. So again, we want to help children develop good health habits. So in terms of developing good health habits, sleep, diet, sexual activity, substance use are all concerns for parents when children are in middle to late adolescence. So parents are really responsible for helping children promote those good habits. Parents should set rules when appropriate. So another thing that's important to remember is that even if teens resist us as parents, they are still listening. And again, talking about authoritative parenting, adolescents become highly competent, socially responsible, high achieving, good at relationships, and less likely to engage in risk behaviors when they're parented authoritatively. So this right here is a really interesting graphic. It shows a picture of a teen not listening, right? So this appears to be a picture of a teen that's really resistant, but it's important to remember as a parent that even when a child is rolling their eyes, that they're still taking in information, not only what we're saying, but also what we're doing. So I look forward to seeing you next week. We want to keep in mind that the vast majority of the quiz questions for quiz number 3 are going to be taken from this week's work. So I look forward to seeing you next week, and please remember to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. So have a great week.